A large portion of the Jewish nation has returned to its homeland, but the heart, soul, and mind of much of the Jewish nation are still in exile mode. This state of affairs must and will inevitably change. This is Torah Nation TV from Jerusalem, and we are speaking with the head of Machon Shilo, Rabbi David Bar-Hayim. Shalom, Rabbi Bar-Hayim.
Shalom.
Is there a connection between humility and the possibility of arriving at the truth?
There is indeed a very real and fundamental connection between humility and the possibility of a person, even of a great Chacham, a great scholar, arriving at the truth. Hazal often stress that humility, anawa in Hebrew, is required, is an essential requirement for the true study of Torah. And we have an example of this also in the Mishnah in Masechet Avot, where we find in the first chapter, Yudah ben Tovai says, Al ta'as asmach ke'oreche hadayanim. That is the version that we have usually before us, that most people have heard and have seen. Al ta'as asmach ke'oreche hadayanim, which literally means do not behave literally like a lawyer. That is to say, those commentators who explain this term as we find it there, ke'oreche dayanim, explain that this refers to people who instruct a person who is about to appear in court before the judges. They instruct him before the hearing how to plead, what to say, what claims to make, what claims not to make, etc. And the trouble with this understanding or this interpretation of the Mishnah, that frankly it makes very little sense, and I'm sure that many people have wondered really what this Mishnah is trying to say. Many of the Mefarshim have attempted to explain what this is talking about, and really without much success. And there is in fact a very simple reason for this, and that is that the reading of the Mishnah, as people are used to seeing it, is simply wrong. The correct reading of the Mishnah, as it appears in, first of all, two of the most important manuscripts of the Mishnah, Ktav Yad Kaufman and Ktav Yad Parma, in these two manuscripts we see the correct and more ancient reading of the Mishnah, which is Al Ta'as Asmach Archi Dayanim, or Ke Archi Dayanim, with an aleph, and it has nothing to do with the concept or the term Orech Din, a lawyer or a person who instructs a person what to say in a court of law so that it will be to his advantage. It has nothing to do with that. In fact, it has to do with the Greek term for head or chief. That is to say, archi in Greek was a term that was well known and used frequently to refer to someone who was the head of something or the most important individual in a certain group. For example, the English word architect comes from the Greek word for the same concept, architecton, which has to do with the concept of an engineer, and the architecton is the chief engineer, the head of the engineers. In the same way in English we have the term archbishop. The archbishop is of course the head, the chief bishop. In the same way, archi dayanim means the head or chief of the judges. Do not conduct yourself, and this is being addressed to judges, to dayanim in a beit din, in a court of law. Do not conduct yourselves as if, any one of you, as if you are the head of the judges, as if you know everything that is to be known, that you have seen all the angles and considered all possible arguments, and there is nothing that they can tell you, your colleagues. Do not behave or think in those terms, but rather be open to hearing their points of view, their understandings, because no human being is capable of seeing all the possible angles and understanding all the possibilities and all the different points of view that might be brought to bear on a certain subject. That is why another Mishnah tells us that no judge should judge alone as a one-man tribunal, and that is why Beit Din is always at least three individuals, three dayanim, three judges, Because only HaKadosh Baruch Hu, says the Mishnah, only HaKadosh Baruch Hu can be done yehidi, can judge things alone, because only Hashem sees the entire picture with all possible angles and things that need to be considered and understood in order to reach the correct conclusion, in order to arrive at the truth. This is something that belongs only to Hashem, whereas human beings who are finite, who are limited, must be willing and able to hear the other person's approach, the other person's understanding. He doesn't have to agree at the end of the day, but he has to be willing to listen and to understand what other possible ways there are of looking at this issue. If this instruction, this teaching of Yehuda ben Tovai was taken to heart and understood by more Torah scholars, great and small, we would find today in the Torah world less fruitless discussion, less rancor, less sinat hinam, and more sincere searching for the truth. And when there is a number of opinions expressed and angles and possible interpretations or possible arguments are heard, the chance of discovering the truth and arriving at the correct conclusion in all matters to do with Torah, as also with many other areas in human affairs, the chance of arriving at the truth is much greater. And therefore, Yehuda ben Tovai said, Al ta'as asmach karchi dayanim, because you are not the only person who has a valid or possible point of view. It's possible that the other point of view is also valid, or at least something you should know about and consider before reaching your decision.
Thank you, Rabbi Bar-Hayim. We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. We would also like to suggest the following opportunity to our viewers. If you identify with Rabbi Bar-Hayim's message and would like to sponsor or dedicate a video interview with the rabbi in honor or memory of a loved one, if you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.